Look, if you've been tracking the offseason moves, you already know the upcoming 2026-27 NBA season isn't just about the stats on the hardwood. We're talking about simmering front office dramas, the expiring patience of absolute legends, and ticking clocks that are just waiting to blow up the league. Today, we're looking at the foundational tensions that are quietly defining this entire season before a single basketball is even tipped off.
And it all culminates right here, February 11th, 2027. Now, this isn't just some arbitrary Thursday on the calendar. This is the newly announced trade deadline. It's the ultimate pressure cooker date when the entire NBA landscape could fundamentally shift, and trust me, front offices are already losing sleep over it. Every contract negotiation, every three-game losing streak in November, every little locker room spat is on a direct collision course with this specific date. The moves made, or honestly, the moves not made by February 11th are going to echo for the next half-decade of basketball.
All right, Section 1, the ticking trade clock. We'll be looking at key dates and mechanical rules. Okay, let's dive into this ticking trade clock. To really grasp the anxiety general managers are feeling right now, we have to understand the mechanics of the deadline and why navigating the CBA rules makes all the difference. The stakes actually start way before February. August 11th is the veteran extension cutoff. If a player signs a veteran extension after that date, they risk triggering a 6-month trade restriction. That completely traps them on their current roster past the trade deadline. Then we've got November 11th, the free agent signing cutoff. Anyone signed after that date cannot be dealt this season, period. And right in the middle, we have January 6th. This is the exact date when recently extended players, like Neemias Queta, finally see their trade restrictions lift. So if you're a front office dealing with an underperforming roster in December, having players locked up until January 6th basically freezes your flexibility for half the season. It makes every single early season loss sting twice as much.
So, what exactly triggers that 6-month trade freeze? Well, the rules are crazy strict. A newly extended player gets locked out of a trade if their total contract length exceeds 4 years, if the starting salary jumps more than 120% from their previous final year, if annual raises or decreases exceed 5%, or if the current contract is renegotiated. I mean, imagine accidentally trapping a disgruntled player on your roster for the entire season just because your front office miscalculated a 5% raise in year 3 of their new deal. It happens, and it's a massive strategic gamble. If a GM crosses any of these mathematical lines after August 11th, that player is literally impossible to move when the deadline chaos erupts.
Moving on to Section 2, Max Money Standoffs, the price of the future.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these mechanical rules translate into real human tension. Let's look at 2 highly stressed max money standoffs. You've got young bigs fighting for their paydays going up against teams absolutely terrified of the luxury tax. On one side, we have Karl Anthony Towns, proven championship winner, fresh off helping the Knicks to a title. He is eligible for a massive 4-year, $272 million max extension. But the Knicks are deeply wary of the second apron restrictions. By not committing early, New York is potentially reopening some very fresh wounds from previous trade rumors that haunted KAT for years. Then, on the flip side, you have Jalen Duren in Detroit. A brilliant young prospect, absolutely, but after a disastrous playoff showing where he was thoroughly outplayed and looked totally lost on defense, his camp is still demanding the full max.
$287.1 million. Yeah, let that sticker shock sink in for a second. Duren's camp confidently points to his All-NBA third-team selection, which bumped his maximum earning potential up to this astronomical figure. But you have to remember the context of the modern NBA here. Cap space around the league has completely dried up because of the new, highly punitive CBA rules that heavily tax teams operating in the second apron. Because of this, the Pistons likely value Duren much closer to $180 million. That is a gigantic $100 million gap. It's a high-stakes standoff, and Duren has virtually zero external leverage left. There just aren't other teams with the cap space to threaten Detroit with a competing offer.
So, what happens if Detroit holds firm and just calls his bluff? Well, Duren could just take a $9 million qualifying offer that would allow him to play out this year on a massive discount and become a completely unrestricted free agent in 2027. If he goes that route, every single offensive possession this season takes on a really dark, ominous undertone. It becomes a tense, high-stakes contract audition. For a center who fundamentally relies on his guards to feed him the ball, demanding touches to prove his worth could lead to incredibly selfish basketball. That kind of dynamic could completely fracture the Pistons' locker room chemistry before we even hit Christmas.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. Superstars losing patience. The clock on the legends.
You know, we aren't just looking at young guys chasing their first big bag.
we have to consider the legends, the superstars, whose championship windows are rapidly closing. The defining question for both the Western and Eastern conferences right now is simply this: how long will they wait? Think about the immense psychological burden placed on veterans who are carrying underperforming franchises, knowing they only have a few prime years left in the tank. What does a breaking point actually look like? Usually it starts with passive-aggressive post-game press conferences, right? Then it escalates to cryptic social media stuff. And finally, it ends in a dreaded formal trade request that hijacks the entire news cycle.
Just take a look at Anthony Davis. He was surprisingly traded to the Wizards, got hurt, and now at 34 years old, he wants a $275 million extension. Washington is a rebuilding team that just scraped together 17 wins. They understandably want to wait and see, so they've agreed to this 20-game marinate period. If the team looks awful by game 21, or if the front office refuses to pay him, AD could easily force a blockbuster trade by January. And then, look at Steph Curry. At 38 years old, he's watched the Warriors endure a completely stagnant offseason with 0 major roster additions. He's eligible for a $136 million extension, but money is definitely not the issue here. Competitive faith is. A stagnant offseason for a 38-year-old isn't just a disappointment, it's essentially a death sentence for championship hopes. His window is measured in months now, not years. If the Warriors are sitting in 11th place in the West this winter, Curry's legendary decade-long patience might finally irreversibly run out.
All right, Section 4, Locker Room Chemistry Clashes, Distractions and Disappointments.
Twitter nonsense. That is literally how Kevin Durant bluntly dismissed those highly publicized burner account rumors that swirled around the All-Star break. Because, nothing says elite, multi-billion-dollar professional sports league quite like grown men allegedly using secret internet profiles to argue with teenagers and trash their own coworkers. If you recall, screenshots surfaced from an account allegedly belonging to Durant, fiercely criticizing his Houston Rockets teammates Alperen Sengun and Jabari Smith Jr. Durant completely brushed it off to the media, refusing to validate it or give it a single ounce of oxygen.
But here's the thing. Behind closed doors, it didn't just quietly go away. According to multiple sources, that burner account remained a massive, looming distraction. Durant reportedly never clarified the situation or cleared the air with his teammates. They all agreed to keep it in-house, but the unresolved tension was just simmering right beneath the surface of every single practice and every game. This is why this matters for you as a fan. In the NBA, culture and chemistry will almost always override sheer talent on paper. And what happened to Houston? The Rockets suffered their second straight first-round playoff exit. If Houston starts this new season slowly, you better believe those unresolved chemistry issues will erupt all over again, right as the deadline approaches.
Which brings us to Section 5, Lingering Off-Season Rumors, the Unresolved Sparks. These are the final, unpredictable elements of the offseason. These unresolved sparks just waiting to ignite the league as we get closer to February. We have to break down this bizarre Klay Thompson standoff. Klay obviously wants to compete for another ring, but the Mavericks have radically shifted their timeline, and he simply no longer fits their plans. But Dallas refuses to just buy out his $17.5 million contract. Instead, they are demanding second-round draft assets in a sign-and-trade. The Miami Heat are heavily interested in acquiring Klay's perimeter shooting, but they strictly refuse to include 23-year-old Nikola Jovic in any deal. So picture this. A four-time champion, one of the greatest shooters in the history of the sport, and a crucial piece of a defining basketball dynasty, is currently sitting at home in limbo because a front office is stubbornly haggling over future second-round draft picks. The sheer irony of it is staggering.
And we can't forget the Lakers. Their looming decision regarding LeBron James' son, Bronny, serves as a massive wildcard in the market right now. This isn't just a fun little side story, it is the ultimate domino that could force several other teams to show their hand before the trade deadline. As the Lakers balance incredibly tight roster spots and show deep interest in acquiring veteran forwards to bolster LeBron's closing championship window, every move they make creates a huge ripple effect. Everything is deeply connected in this league's ecosystem.
So what does this all mean? The NBA season is officially a powder keg. Between Jalen Duren's $100 million sticker shock, Karl Anthony Towns' lingering resentment, Steph Curry's rapidly closing window, and Kevin Durant's unresolved burner account drama, the pressure building inside these front offices is immense. The only question left is, who forces the first blockbuster trade of 2027? Which of these ticking clocks will be the first to detonate before February 11th? Keep your eyes on the deadline, because the explosion is absolutely coming.